Hi guys, I'm Melissa Elise and you're watching Melissa Elise TV. Welcome to another week of my Outlander review. Let's get right to Season 3, Episode 10, Heaven and Earth. I always like when they cut right from the recap into the episode. It's a nice change of pace and it works well in creating urgency, which this episode needed because there are some parts that lag, but the pacing picks up again near the end. At the open, Jamie waits for Claire to return from the British ship, the Porpoise, and he notices Fergus talking with the cook, so he asks him about his dealings. And turns out Fergus had him make a potpourri for Marcelline, which was kind of sweet. And this is just one of several moments between Fergus and Marcelline in this episode that showed how much they actually do love one another. Fergus notices that the porpoise is moving, and Jamie is furious to learn that Captain Rains is not going to go after Claire. He attacks him, which leads to this standoff between Jamie's men and the rest of the crew. Realizing how this is going to end, Jamie has his men stand down, but Captain Rains responds by having Jamie locked up. Aboard the Porpoise, Claire continues to tend to sick men and has grog used as hand sanitizer to kill germs. She works closely with the 14-year-old Mr. Elias Pound, and together they make an infectious disease fighting team. After doing some digging, Claire is able to find the source of the disease in a Mr. Howard, whose former crew members are all dead now, but he's still alive and working in the kitchen. Upon the captain's orders, Howard is locked up, but unfortunately for the cook, that means he loses his one helper, and that just increases his disdain for Claire. Back in his cell, Jamie is losing his battle with seasickness, and his worry over Claire's safety does not help. He makes it clear that he is not willing to lose her again. I had expected to hear him deliver a heaven and earth line, and since that's the name of this episode, and I was not disappointed. But I did feel a little bad for Fergus because Fergus loves Jamie and Claire, and Jamie puts him in such a difficult situation holding his blessing for marriage to Marcelline over his head. But you feel Jamie's pain being separated from Claire again, so you understand he's gonna do whatever it takes to find her. The episode cuts back to Claire as they prepare more bodies for an at-sea burial, and ELISE explains the stitching of the cloth over the bodies and the last stitch going through the nose to make sure that they're dead, and how it should be done by a friend. The burial was a beautiful scene, right down to the tears that Elias sheds for his lost friend. Claire has another encounter with the cook, who basically threatens her if her methods don't start working to cure the men. But Elias is there to back her up. There's an exchange of a rabbit foot between Elias and Claire, which I already talked about in my first reaction video, so check that out to hear more. But there's a new crisis on board when Mr. Johansson, the husband of the woman whose goats are keeping everyone alive on board, gets sick. Claire figures out that he drank the distilled alcohol, so now he has alcohol poisoning, and she lets out her frustration with a slew of profanities, which everyone is surprised by. But this seemingly random scene served as an introduction to Mrs. Anika Johansson and the discovery of a Portuguese flag. This supposed lead on young Ian turns out to be false, but it does lead Claire to discover that Captain Leonard knows about Jamie and his alias as Alexander Malka. The informant, Harry Tompkins, is somewhere on board, and Claire displays some quick thinking when she has Elias look for him as a potential carrier of the disease. Back to Fergus and Marcelline, who are discussing Jamie's plan to commit mutiny. And it turns out that Marcelline is actually a pretty smart girl, because she points out that if Fergus and Jamie fail, Fergus won't be helping her or Jamie because she'll be all alone. They almost break a promise to wait until they are officially married to sleep together, But then Fergus stops them, and Marsley says that you are so much like Jamie because they're both so stubborn. But that works to their favor in the end when she realizes that she can convince Captain Rains to let Jamie out just by having him give his word. And it's a good thing too, because when Fergus overhears the captain and some of his men talking about them, there is no way they would have been able to take the ship. Checking in with Claire again, ELISE brings her Mr. Tompkins, who is none other than Sir Percival's man from episode 7, Creme de Menthe. He explains everything, revealing a plan to capture Jamie in Kingston when he comes to get her. Claire has him locked up as a second disease carrier across from the actual carrier. She then confides in Anika about her situation, and Anika comes up with a plan to help Claire escape when they stop to feed her goats. But before Claire can make a run for it, poor Elias contracts typhoid and dies, and Claire is the friend to finish the last stitch before he is buried in the deep. When they finally reach some land, Claire attempts escape but is unsuccessful when she runs into Captain Leonard and 2 officers. Leonard explains that he cannot allow her to warn Jamie and has her taken back to the ship. Jamie, however, does get out of his cell at the request of Marsley, but mostly because Captain Rains needs able-bodied men to navigate the ship through the islands. In a way of saying thank you, Jamie does give Fergus and Marsley his blessing to marry once they arrive in Jamaica. Finally, at the end of the episode, Anika is able to convince Claire to escape by making a raft and jumping overboard, hoping to float to a nearby island. I like 2 things in particular about this episode. First, Claire's overall boss attitude. She is running that crew. On the captain's orders, of course, but still, she knows what she's doing and she does not waste any time putting procedures in place to stop the spread of the disease. When that doesn't seem to work, she starts looking for the source of the disease and finds him. And even when she's threatened, she stands her ground and is resourceful. She's quick on her feet, coming up with that lie to find Tompkins, and she shows the same determination as Jamie to get back to him no matter what it takes. Second were the scenes with Marsley. This episode actually made me like her because instead of the conniving attitude she had in last week's episode, she's a lot more tender and nurturing, taking care of Fergus's arm and trying to talk some sense into him. She shows herself to be smart, and I really like the look at her and Jamie's relationship. She calls him daddy, but she is not afraid to tell him when he's being stupid. And we all know Jamie needs that type of tough love in his life. Speaking of love, this week's fan art takes us back to episode 6 when Jamie and Claire first reunited. Wedding Ring by Elissa McMeniman. You can find more of Elissa's work online at elm-studio.com and on Instagram at elm_studio. Check the description section below for all Elissa's details. If you have fan art you'd like featured on my next review, email me at melissalisetv@gmail.com and let me know what you thought of this week's episode in the comment section. Thanks for watching.